Once again, everybody, we are back. We had to take a pause for the calls out. We had to go and grab something to eat and just talk a little bit. And I'm glad we did that because out of that break, there were some conversations that ensued. And I know y'all probably heard some stuff, and I heard some stuff. And one of the things that I heard is about prison being a rite of passage, and crime in our community is normalized. Because a young man had mentioned this to me. He said that in his neighborhood, he came to the men's locker room and he said, I have to get this off my chest. And he started talking. He said that there were some people around his house where he stays that were shooting. And he could hear them running in between his house and shooting. And I believe that one person passed away from that, like right near his house. And he said to me, I was on the floor, and then I got up when it stopped, and I could hear people talking. I don't know how to process this. So you're talking about a traumatic event that happened, that this man was asking, how do we process this? Or do we process this? Is this normal? Well, sometimes in our community, I think it's pretty much to a normalization level. And I only say that because when people in our community see crime, they have this thing where we ain't snitching. But you know Pookie just killed Ray Ray. And you're going to protect Pookie and leave him in the community because he's a killer until he come to your door. So we've normalized it because it's just a way of life. I don't think that should be. I'm not telling nobody go tell on anybody. But you can't explain. Y'all didn't catch that, did y'all? You can explain. So we can't normalize crime in our community. We can't normalize men and women going to prison as a rite of passage. I don't know if a lot of people are familiar with that, but it's so normal in our community that men go to prison and they come out and they say, that wasn't about nothing. And I tell people this, one day should completely change your mind. One day of somebody telling you when to eat, when to take a shower, when to go outside, and when to take a bath, all of that. One day should be the most horrible day in your life, let alone 2 days, 2 years. So that stuff is not normal in our community at all. It shouldn't be normal in our community. Anybody want to speak to that? The normalization of?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. As far as the normalization of it, we call it culture, right? Like, for whatever reason, from a cultural perspective, there's an aspect of us as black men, black youth, that our hip hop and rap culture is something that for whatever reason, we tend to kind of lean on. Specifically kids growing up in single parent homes, right? I run a fatherhood organization, so I can speak well to the fact that most of this comes from fatherless homes. Kids growing up without a lot of guidance, any real male influence in their lives to kind of give them a structure or an idea of what it takes to thrive as a young man growing up in society. And I'm speaking specifically directly for young boys, obviously, growing up, because that pipeline to prison, if you check every statistic from high school dropouts to early teenage pregnancy and to prison, 98% of it is coming from fatherless homes. And so statistically, it pinpoints to the fact that we need obviously more men to step up and do their jobs with their children. Our kids need more of a community aspect, kind of like with the men's locker room and all things fatherhood. Us going into these schools, going into youth programs, and helping out in that aspect, and not allowing kids to just necessarily get lost in what we like to label as culture sometimes, because I can tell you, growing up in the 90s, hip-hop and gang culture was crazy. and it was very easy to get lost in it. You know what I mean? In the early '80s, late '80s, rap and hip hop was different. It had a message behind it, and today there's zero message centered behind the music that a lot of our kids listen to. It's more destructive than it is positive, right? I grew up listening to Public Enemy. You know, they had a message, right? You know what I mean? Certain artists had messages. You know, if you listen to what's going on today and who a lot of these kids are aspiring or looking up to in this industry, it's not a positive thing. You know what I mean? So they need better role models, and I feel like a lot of us men have become very hands off with the youth, and we need to get back to being more hands on with them because they're lost in a sense because they don't have people giving them the proper direction in their lives. So.
But I also think there was a period of time in this community where substances really impacted families, where there was a certain set of individuals coming from out of town and really made a huge impact in this community with crack cocaine hitting the streets, and that was what, 80s, 90s. So then you have the parents actively engaged in substance use and not providing care for their children. So children raising children, or children being left to fend for themselves. And so, or, another impact is nowadays allowing social media to be the parent. Shoving a TV or shoving a pad or some kind of a device in front of the children, and there's no parental structure or advice or mentoring. Or another impact that significantly impacted this community is that there were in the past activities for children to do. There were programs for children to be involved in significantly throughout this community, and there has been just none that I'm aware of. I mean, of course, there's some. I don't have any small children, so I can't say that. But when I was growing up, there was work positions for teenagers to make money. There was, the brownies and the Girl Scouts and the this and the that. You were involved in quite a bit of activities in the community, and that seemed to have a lesson.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback off what you said, and this was something that we talked about during our break. Again, right, we don't have things implemented in the community anymore. When I was going to school, we had wood shop, machine shop, cooking. I had all the mechanics classes. So all that funding has been taken out of the school. So what we're dealing with, what we're talking about today, the problem is a lot larger than what we really honestly know it to be. Because again, without funding, and all these programs get taken away, what is it left for our children to do? And that really impacted the skilled trades in our world today. Skilled trades is lacking, because nobody knows how to do much of anything because they don't teach that anymore. So we need to get back to the basics, and it's gonna take all of us, not just small groups here and there, but all of us to raise our voice, stomp our feet, write our congressman, whatever we got to do to change the narrative. I love the fact that Jay is running. We need more of us in politics so we can change this thing. It's not all about sports and becoming a rapper. Let's become a governor. I want to sit on the Senate. Those things, that's what we need to be, pushing. That's how you get things changed.
Okay. And I could touch on all of these. They're so important. You've kind of been talking about it all day, Terry, but not having silos, having a collaboration place where we can at least go to find some of these resources.
Yes.
hey, who's putting on summer programs for the youth? Hey, who has something for single fathers or first-time fathers? Who has something for our seniors? Who has something for all of the different cups in our community that need to be filled?
Absolutely.
We do have some great people in Greater Muskegon area that are doing some great things, but maybe even having a community day and inviting them all, and even before that community day, having a forum so that they can all get together. Okay, this is what you do, perfect. You're going on the list. This is what you do, you're going on the list. And then we have our own Muskegon Green Book kind of thing, where we know, hey, I need a caterer. I know I'm calling. I need whatever the services are.
Exactly.
And then I guess I wanted to touch on one other thing because from what you were talking about, Clay, I've been watching that Sean Combs P. Diddy documentary. And back then, with all that East Coast, West Coast stuff, they glorified that violence, black man against black man. And we look now, 20, 30 years later, and see how destructive that was to our communities just overall, as opposed to coming together. There are a lot of dark things being done, behind the scenes and stuff. So as you get older, because obviously we were all young people at one time and maybe didn't have the direction, there's young people out there now that may not have that direction, right? And if I can say, I didn't have this when I was in my teens, or I didn't have this when I was in my 20s, there's definitely young people in our communities now that probably don't have those same mentors or resources or things to do. And it's going to start with us, the people in this room, the people watching this. It's going to start with us all the way up to the city commissions, city councils, and state house and state senate, governor.
Absolutely. That's a good point. That being said, I have a question here, and I want to address a couple of them, and we can all chime in on this. But the first one was with the incarceration rate rising, does the men locker room, or has the men locker room thought about going into the schools, the junior high schools, and to influence early on? I can honestly say that has been a goal of the men's locker room, is for men to come into that room and understand who they are, first of all, and understand the power that they have, because men change the climate when they come into the room. They don't just take the temperature. The presence of a man will change the climate. So we first have to get to the point where the men begin to stand up. And that's what you said early on, Clay. When the men begin to stand up, then we can. But in terms of the men locker room, we're looking for an en route to go into the schools. So if anybody know of an en route, please, by all means, present that, and we will definitely act on it. So that, to that question, it's a definite yes. I would say yes, because a wise man said this to me a little while ago. And he's in this room. I'm not going to call his name. But he said to me, we have dropped the ball on the youth coming behind us. We have dropped the ball, because a lot of times what men say now is, it's not my business. And that's so far from the truth. It is our business, because the youth are looking up to see who's there to help them, and we're not there. And so when the men become that climate changer, then yeah, we can go into the schools. We are ready to go into the schools to a degree. So if anybody knows an en route, yes, I say definitely yes. I think you and I talked about that, Rod, about being an influence to the children, to the youngsters.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we talked about we definitely want to get into the school system and try to help coach the youth. Again, if anybody know an avenue that we can take to make that happen, let us know, because we've been desperately trying to get into the school systems to talk to the young kids. So, and I think I have some ideas. I think that's simple ideas. Like they should have a day where all the dads come to the school. Just, hey, on this day, all the dads, every dad available, show up to the school. Just show up.
Yeah.
I think that would be very impactful. And that's something small. And it's not a big thing. Hey, we on the 3rd of next month, all dads show up for the school.
Right.
Have lunch or whatever.
I will share this with you gentlemen and anybody who's watching. Lean on your elected officials. They're supposed to be the spiders of our community. When I say the spiders, they're supposed to be building a web of connectivity, right? So Muskegon High School, I will put you in contact with the right people because there has to be some meetings first, right? We got to present to them what we're trying to do. There's a council person from the Heights in here. Connect with her, and we'll get connected with the Heights Charter School, and we can get into these schools. But lean on your elected officials and say, "Hey, this is what we're trying to do." They'll make that web and make the connection for you, so that we can start to have those conversations.
That's good. I'm glad you said that, because my next comment was, in this room, we have people that know that we're one person away from going into that school. I was just about to say that. We're one person away from accomplishing that goal. And that 1, 2 just stood up. That's how we make a difference, is we begin to connect. We begin to network. When I talk about my organization, the Villiage Initiative, it's not just mentoring that I'm interested in. Of course, that's the core. But what I'm more interested in is networking with other people within this community to have substantial change in our community. The only way we can do that is we come together. And I look forward to that, Jay. I really do. Thank you. Definitely. Another question is, what are some of the ways we can reduce incarceration rates in our community? I'll say, Letisa, what do you think? Because you sitting there looking at me, I'm like, definitely.
One of the biggest things I really believe that reducing incarceration really starts with children at young ages. Really having a support system that allowing children to identify their emotions, allowing children to feel their feelings, allowing children to be children, and to have those stages of development that's needed for childhood, into their adulthood, but also a system that supports them or surrounds them. So if the parent is not able to do that, then we have our grandparents and our aunts and uncles and all of that. But also that there has to be some extended these pseudo parents or these persons in the community that if you can't find it at home, then somebody in the community. I think for me, there were neighbors. There was granny. There were neighbors that took me in, right? That supported and surrounded me so that I can do what I needed to do instead of just going backwards or hitting the streets. Okay, so my personality makeup is that no, I'm not doing that, right? But sometimes you just have so many different personalities. I think it really begins at home, and so education. So I'm a counselor. I'm one that is a problem solver, and so I'm definitely talking through the things that's going on in families, and also not holding secrets. And so, we come up in this age and time where it's like you can't tell anybody what's going on in this household. You can't talk about this. Keeping secrets keep people sick. Keeping secrets keep people locked out of seeking support. Keeping secrets creates a lot of trauma and just wounds that are not healed or have a significant time of possibly even being addressed because we're not opening our mouths to say anything. And so it's not just one thing, it's many, because our environment there's environmental factors, there's emotional factors, there's just so many things that impacts one person.
For me, we got to kind of get back to it's funny, Village Initiative, but village mindset. Growing up, I grew up with the saying, "It takes a village to raise a child," and it was very much true for my neighborhood. If I was walking down the street doing something I wasn't supposed to, the neighbor could say something to me and go tell my mom, and there will be repercussions for my actions, right? So we can't be afraid of our youth as adults. And I think a lot of times we do not want to say anything to our youth. I'll tell you a story, experience I had here at what's the chicken place? No, the Wingstop. I was in there with my wife and her cousin, and these two young black kids came in, probably around the ages of 17 years old. And they came in there hot. One had a gun on his hip. And so I told my wife, go to the car, because I could tell immediately that there was going to be some level of an issue. They got their food and basically made them make it over. They said the food was wrong. And so then they start making demands about a lot of things that they wanted in return from the restaurant. And it was getting pretty heated on the side of the kids. And I was sitting there telling myself, don't say anything, because you don't want to get involved with this situation. But I couldn't not say something. And so I said to them, I said, hey, they're making y'all food over. I want y'all to chill out. And they looked at me and told me to mind my business, but with choice words I'm not going to say because we're in a church. And I was like, is y'all fathers in y'all lives? And they were like, F them dudes, right? I'm like, look, man, there's a way for you to represent yourself being young black men. You can either do it like this, and the path that you're going down is going to lead you to a place that you don't want to be, or you can be respectable, allow these people to remake y'all food because they're doing that, and leave out of here without incident. Now, I was very nervous that these kids could flip on me, pull that gun out and do something, but at the same time, I felt an obligation as an older black man to speak to these kids, to try to talk some sense in them. Now, I don't know if I did talk sense into them, but they did leave. Nothing happened in that place. They got their food and they went on about their lives. But my point is that we cannot be afraid to speak to our young youth, because we have stayed silent for far too long. When it comes to them, we have gotten away from that village mindset of helping raise each other's children. You can't say anything to people's kids anymore. You just can't. People get upset if you try to give a child direction. And we got to stop that. You're not a bad parent because somebody else asks your kid to stop doing something or giving them some level of direction that they see might be needed. And for whatever reason, we shifted mentally from that perspective, and I think we definitely need to get back to it. Also, I think that we, just speaking from a fatherhood perspective, moms, especially young moms, they typically have a community when they have kids. Young dads typically don't. And we definitely need to make sure we are wrapping our arms around our young fathers and encouraging them and giving them the opportunity to walk into fatherhood, because a lot of them run away from it because they don't have the resources, they don't have the help, they don't have the community. And like I stated earlier, you check all the crime statistics, they're typically from fatherless homes. So the more dads, the more men we have stepping up in these kids' lives, it will significantly help reduce the incarceration rates in our community.
I think that we have to do what's actually going on now. I think we have to evolve because things have changed. You know, it's not like it was before, you know, so now a lot of these kids are isolated. So they don't have the communication skills that we had when we were growing up because they either in their tablet all day or on their phone or they in their room with the door closed. You know what I'm saying? That's what kids do nowadays. And we've allowed this as parents to happen, you know. And so I think, you know, to your point, Clay, it's like, you know, when somebody else come along and try to give your child direction, then we'll be quick to jump. Don't talk to my baby like that. Now you're giving that kid that thought that, oh, can't nobody say nothing to me. I got somebody to cover me. And we didn't have that. You know, if I did something wrong and Mr. Johnson came and told my mom, it was on. You know, it was on. It was like, I know you wasn't down there acting no fool. Yeah. So I think if we look at how things have evolved with our kids nowadays, and we try to do, we are taking, I feel like we're taking some of our past traumas and passing it down to our kids.
Absolutely.
You know, and not realizing it. We're not intentionally doing it, but we're doing it and not realizing it by overcompensating. Oh, I'm gonna get them this. I'm gonna buy them this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. You know, and then, you know, you're not realizing this person's gonna get older, and you're not gonna always be able to do that.
Yeah.
Now here comes a problem. You know, so I think we just have to catch up to where society's at today. You know what I'm saying, and remove the cell phones, and I know they try to do it in the school, and it is difficult because technology is moving a lot faster than we ever possibly could think. You know, so we're up against a lot of, like I say, a lot of different things, you know, to change this narrative. So, but working together, we can do it.
There we go. I'll just keep mine short and sweet. So I think mentoring these young people, young women mentoring our young women, men mentoring our young men. So whether that's in schools, get some of the, I'm a PK, shout out to Pastor. You know, I appreciate you, Pastor, for letting things like this be in your church, yes. Right? Get people back into the church. And I know not everyone's a Christian or religious, but maybe they come to an event and then their eyes are opened, or they meet someone, right? They can discover that relationship they never had before. But you've heard the word trauma a lot today, because I think some of the young people, like the ones that Clay had the interaction with, that's trauma. These young men, when we talk about youth, or we say the word youth, there's always a level of innocence to our youth. If they're 17, they're still a young person. They still have a level of innocence there. They mask that because of some trauma that happened in their life. So they got to be hard. You can't tell me nothing, blah, blah, blah. So we have to have services. When I was growing up in Grand Rapids, because of different things that happened with my brother, I had to talk to certain people, and no offense to anyone, but those people were never a man and they never looked like me. So if we have more people training to do things, whether they're their trades, whether they're health and human services, things like those, right? Getting our adults into these things so we can be helping our own community too. I think all of those things, again, it's a big web, but all of those kind of things will help.
Some of the ways, to me, that we could help reduce incarceration in our community is, and everybody pretty much hit on it, but I'm going to give it a name, is relationship. You cannot give direction, correction, or guidance without relationship. So when we talk about people who are headed towards incarceration, who are dealing in criminality, as I said before, they're one person away from getting to the resource they need. So here's the thing. People who are closest to the problem are closest to the solution, but the furthest away from the resources to have substantial change. Everybody sitting here is a resource. Jay is a resource. Rod is a resource. Letisa, Clay, and myself. So resources may have to take on a different look than what we think they are. We say, well, we don't have the resources, but we do. We have teachers, educators. We have people who know skills, who have skill sets that sit here in this room and within our community. So a resource may not be to a place or a building that you can go, but by definition, a resource is simply a place where you can come to get the things and the help you need. A person is just one person away from incarceration if they can get the help they need from Jay, from Terry, if they could come talk to me, if they could come talk to Clay. These are resources. We are walking resources. And so when I think about how do we do this in our community, we do it through relationship. You can't reach them if you don't have relationship. And relationship is not saying do what I say, but it's I hear you. I understand where you are and what you're saying. Because most times people that are in those situations, they just need to be heard. They're looking for an out. There's a quote that says this, and then I'm going to move on to the next question. There's a quote that says this: a child is looking for the warmth of the village, but he'll burn the whole village down just to get warm. That means he'll destroy everything around him just to feel accepted. All he needs is that resource of warmth. That's what they're looking for. And so when we sit here as resources, this is what is needed to help reduce recidivism. Develop resources, and sometimes it might take a while before you can break through a person because they've been obstinate and hard and callous for a very long time. And we give up because of that. We can't do, that's not what we're here to do. So I think when we talk about how do we help recidivism or incarceration rate in our community, it's through relationships. It's through relationships. You got to have a person that says, well, this young lady is doing something. Well, I know Letisa. She could talk to Letisa, or she could go and talk to Joy. I know somebody she can talk to that'll help her. A woman that can help a young girl change the trajectory of her life through relationship. Next question. I think we hit on this. All minds clear on that one? All minds clear? Okay. Next question, it says, it is now becoming common for young adults being in jail almost to the extent of it being a badge of honor. And I think we touched on that earlier. How do we help a youth to address this trend and mentality? The mentality that it's not a badge of honor. I do this, and then anybody else could jump on this. I do this. I will approach them once that relationship is established and say, if somebody were to come back to you from the dead and tell you what's on the other side, would you believe them? I go, yeah, absolutely. I said, well, I was in the catacombs. I've been through the quarantine. I've been to prison, and I'm here to tell you what it is and what it's not. So all the glorification that you see, whether it's a badge of honor, I'm going to tell you that that's not true. Here's what's going to happen when you walk into that situation. Your mother's going to be over here worried about you. She's going to be depressed. Your brothers are going to feel like you died. They won't come and see you. Everybody else that you thought was on your team, you found out they wasn't. When the smoke clears, you're going to be standing alone. And the people that you meet inside, if you don't decide to change going in, the people that you're going to meet inside are going to have you come out worse than you are coming in. And so when I get to that point where I can describe that to them, and I'll put it in a way to where they understand, they go, wow, nobody's ever said it to me like that. So when you come to the place where you know it's not a badge of honor and you've had that experience, you can touch the soul. You can touch them. You just have to be adamant about it, and you got to be passionate about it. Because people say this, I've seen a miracle, this happened and that happened. The true miracles that we experience in life is a life changed. Because we have our own will. We ain't got to do nothing. We can do what we want to do for the rest of our lives. But when you see a life that's radically altered and changed for the good, that's the real miracle. Because it deals with the heart. There's a wise man that said that the heart is deceitfully wicked above all things. Who can know it? But when that heart is changed, when that heart is made something new, that's the real miracle. Anybody want to jump on that? Y'all good? All minds?
I just want to say one thing.
Into you.
So something you touched on. So I raised 5 boys, 4 stepsons and my son. My oldest stepson, 16, went to jail or juvie. 18 went to jail. 20 went to prison. And I used those lessons because he didn't learn X, that first incident for me. He didn't learn the second incident for me, but the influences that he picked up, and he kept going down those roads thinking that jail was badge of honor or prison was badge of honor. I at least was able to save the younger boys, the ones younger than him. And I used that as an example, not necessarily a scare tactic, but I had to try to use it as an example to show how cool it wasn't. And it did work, thankfully none of the other boys have ever been in trouble. But sometimes just being able to see or show them that's not the road that you want to go down. If that's what I have to use, my brother, my cousin, my neighbor down the street as an example, then that's what we got to do, because we got to save the rest, kind of thing,
I also think too that, and this is something that we have not touched on today, is, and we most people don't even think about it, but understand what your triggers are. The earlier you can understand what triggers you, the more likely you would not go to jail or prison. But you have to understand your triggers, and a lot of us don't. Even to this day, a lot of people don't know what their triggers are until it actually happens, and then you be like, "Man, it just went off." So I think understanding your triggers, the earlier you discover that, the better off in life you'll be. And my wife, she helped me with that, understand what my triggers are, So I think that's very, very important. Even at a very young age, you see 13, that's when you start, developing your teenager, your hormones bouncing up.
Standing on the porch ready to jump. Do you see me standing on the ready to jump? I want to ask you this real quick. I hear us say this a lot. And I hear this terminology thrown out there a lot, triggers. When you say triggers, what do you mean?
Well, it depends. It varies from person to person.
Okay, give me some. Give me some.
So for example,
a person might have.
For example, if you're the type of person that you're used to getting everything you want, anytime you ask, you can get it.
Okay.
And then the one time you're told no, then you just throwing a tantrum.
That's a trigger. Okay.
That's a trigger.
I got you. Okay.
And then you keep repeating that cycle. Every time somebody tells you no, we see it in kids. Young kids. 4 or 5 years old. They I want this. Those are you're teaching them how to just set up for triggers.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then when they get older, 13, 14, and somebody be like, now they want to kill that person. Because it was never addressed back here.
Got you. Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
I'm with
you. So that's just one example.
Yeah, that's a good example. Thank you.
So,
I had another question. We're gonna move through these questions kind of quickly as we can because it's a 2:15. I really wanted us to be out of here like at 2:30. So another question was, what resources would you suggest for someone who's recently released look into or utilize? Anybody know any resources? Go ahead.
Well, it depends on, I do provide counseling services, Family Outreach Center. We have recovery coaching. I'm the counselor and the supervisor for that program, and we have case management. So that program can assist with providing services to an individual that either has been incarcerated or currently on probation or homeless, or that have Medicaid, limited income, and that we can be a resource to them.
Okay, so resources like helping them to get medical.
Helping them to connect, as far as a case manager, helping them connect with primary care physician, helping them connect with employment, helping connect with also helping them to seek housing.
Okay.
As well, or let's say they may have housing and they need assistance with utilities, connecting them with the community resources to manage that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anybody else?
Fresh Coast Alliance here in Muskegon has a lot of resources also. But there are resources across the county. So connecting with a counselor, connecting with certain nonprofits, that goes back to what I was saying, is that we need to kind of have a place for all the resources, or at least everyone who provides, like, hey, we just do help with utilities. We don't do help with housing or help with jobs. But those same people that only do utilities should be able to have a list and say,
I agree.
These people, okay, if you need work, we got these people. If you need housing, we got these people.
Gotcha.
I think those kind of things would be really helpful for our community.
Shared information.
Shared.
Okay.
And now I want to touch piggyback off that, because when we talk about resources, we're talking about places we can enter into. I would like to see the stats on how many successful stories we have with providing these resources. So we did help X amount of people, because a lot of time with the resources, they're there, but the funding's not there. So I could come in and have a conversation and say, hey, yeah, I can help you with this, this, and this. But then now I'm on a list, how long is that going to be?
Right.
And how much can we afford to give out? What's the expense behind that? And I think that's probably a whole nother topic. But understanding that, because there are resources out there, but is it funded? Is there enough funding available to actually help these people, get to the next level?
I just saw an ad that just popped up where it was offering free CDL training. And I try to encourage men to, even when they come out, seek something like that. Not saying that this is your end game, but this is something to help you get to your end game. Learning how to do a skill like this, or learning how to do plumbing, or learning how to do electrical. There are places out there that offer that kind of help. And there are resources that can guide you to that when you connect with, I want to say resource centers, because those places that you're talking about, Jay, act as resource centers. Like Fresh Coast can act as a center, or Latisa can act as a center when connecting people with those kind of things. So we're out here. They just have to be utilized. And I think one of the more important things is not just directing them towards the resources, but the person that's being directed has the determination to get it and not stop at the first roadblock. That's what I'm talking about. Don't stop at the first roadblock, because a lot of people, they'll give up because they're used to things like Rod say. You're used to getting it your way the first time you ask. So I understand that very well. I think this is the last question, if nobody else has any. How has your experience with incarceration yourself or those close to you impact your romantic relationships? Oh, boy. Who wrote that? Never mind. Don't say nothing. Don't even say that. Good Lord. I'll read it again. How has your experience with incarceration yourself or those close to you impacted your romantic relationship? Can I go first?
Yes. Please.
Okay. Good Lord. Good Lord. Here's the thing. When it comes to romantic relationships after incarceration, understanding that men and women have different ideas of what that relationship is going to be. First and foremost, I will say this. The person that's never been incarcerated is dealing with a person who's just come out of a lot of unnatural and traumatic events. That person is going to act completely different than the expectation of the person who's not been incarcerated. And the wires are going to get crossed at some point. Now, I would say that that's not in every case, but in the majority, 99.9, that's how high it is in my guesstimation. It's 99.9. The wires are going to get crossed because you have somebody that's coming out of incarceration, and more than likely, I go in and I talk to guys now. I go into Muskegon Correctional Facility for when the guys have parole. I go in and I talk to them. And the very thing they say is when they get ready to go, man, I can't wait to get with my, y'all know, you can fill in that blank. I can't wait to get with it. I hate the term, but a lot of guys say, I can't wait to see my baby mama. Man, I can't wait to get me a girlfriend. And then there are guys that come out and say, man, I got 3 girlfriends. It's like, dude, you messed up. You got a job yet? And he goes, no, but I got 3 girlfriends. So the wires are going to get crossed because the objectives are different. Is it going to affect a romantic relationship? 9 times out of 10, yeah. But there's always that one that it doesn't. There's always that one. There's always one. But there's always 8 or 9 that it does. So when you talk about how does it, different objectives, I would say we have different agendas, different objectives, different ideas of what it's going to look like. And when it don't look like that, guys and women will say, boy, did not mess that up. Okay.
One of the things with that is I've been in a relationship with someone that had been incarcerated, and I think doing that was because, hey, I'm used to incarceration, right? With a parent being incarcerated, so it's just like, oh yeah, okay, well I think I could do that, and it's like, it didn't work, okay. Why? We definitely had different values, different perspectives. They had learned some behaviors. Far as this isolating or not speaking, and I'm out here in the world living, doing whatever it is I'm doing, and they've picked up on behaviors that really kind of rubbed me the wrong way, which could be the silent treatment, the this, the that. I don't want to talk. I don't have to tell you where I am, but some of that could be, hey, I've been locked up. I don't have to talk to you about the things that I do. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on just a second. If we're going to be together, I thought we should be able to communicate. So there's some things that they could believe. There's also some things that, far as employment, are you willing to work? Sometimes they may look at them work environments as hostile environments. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that because they want me to do this or that. But my perspective and my goal is, hey, you work, we work. That's what we do. Right? And they might not value that. And so, yes, just what I would consider a simple thing, but it's really not so simple. It's complex when somebody has been incarcerated because sometimes they're not working or they're doing this porter job, and that's not providing the type of money that you would want to see someone making. Sometimes a person may have went in at a young age. Okay, they're an adult now. They look like an adult, but emotionally and mentally, they are impacted significantly. They are not adults. Okay, and so emotionally, they're stuck and probably at 12, 14, 16, whenever they first started going into the prison system. And so it's like, wait a minute. Something that I would think because you look like a man on the outside that you can handle, they may, simple as like cleaning up. Okay. So yes, it could significantly have an impact on an intimate relationship.
I was just gonna speak on that, and you hit it right on the head. From my experience, with my dad, when he got released this last time, I think he was 61 when he came out. I got him in the department and everything. And but his mindset was stuck way back in the 70s. He could never get past that. So we, and he lived his life. You're talking about, relationships. I had got him a really nice bed. He lived in that apartment for 3-4 years. Never once slept in that bed. He slept on the couch every night. Every night I come over there in the morning, he on the couch. He never slept in that bed not one time. But he was so used to being locked up, that's how he lived. Even in his cabinets, he had stuff, just food, just stacked up, cans, and just rows and rows, just like he was locked up. So a lot of times, to your point, Leticia, they get institutionalized mentally, and they stay there. You know, he never wanted to leave that area in his mind because to him, that's all he knew. You know, and at any time he could go back because he never was, you know, trying to, you know, turn his life around and clean things up. The only thing that stopped him is time. He just got older, and he couldn't move like he used to.
Terry, I'll say this: relationships need communication. Exactly. So, talking specifically to our young ladies and our women out here, if you are in a relationship with somebody who's locked up, just make sure that you are, while they're locked up, that you're talking to them, and you're talking to them about goals when they get out. You're talking to them about conflict resolution and behaviors when they get out, because sometimes if conflict resolution isn't talked about, how do you settle your differences when you're in jail or you're in prison? Violence. You know, you can't solve your miscommunications out in the real world like that. So just having those conversations, taking things slow. I mean, I know men are thinking about one thing necessarily when they get out, but if there's going to be a long-term relationship there, then those other deeper conversations should be being had beforehand.
Well, we're going to end with that one, and I'm going to tell y'all this. When I got out, I had myself together, so I was straight. All right, I just want to share that with you. So anyway, listen, y'all, this is really appreciative, and I hope that the information that was brought forth here just resonated with somebody, and we're going to do this again. And I would just ask somebody to tell somebody. Tell 2 or 3 people next time, and we want to actually pack this place. So I'm thinking maybe towards the springtime we'll do this again in the next 3 or 4 months, perhaps. Maybe let's just say 4 months, maybe around May, April, May. We'll probably do this again. And tell somebody, bring somebody. And like I said, I hope this information was relevant. It was clear, and it was good. It was very informative, because our community need to start having this dialogue. We need to start having these conversations so we can bring healing. So thank you all for coming. It is now 2:30, and I say today is Saturday. Have a good rest of your day.